I'm Wendy Wilson, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Realizing Potential. I'm very excited about today's guest. She's a colleague within the diversity and inclusion space, and certainly a community builder, a stranger to very few, but she's none other than Dr. Jennifer Williams from Phoebe Putney Healthcare Systems. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have you, and what more importantly, that you've carved some time out of your unbelievable schedule. But let's just share with the viewers. I want to take full advantage of your presence today. Let's share with the viewers your role at Phoebe. You recently received a well-earned promotion there. Give us a little background about your educational experience and how you landed in your current role.
Okay, well, I'll start with my current role. I am newly promoted to Phoebe's Corporate Director of Diversity, Engagement, and Inclusion. And when I say newly, I mean really newly. It's actually been about a couple of weeks now that I've been in this role, but I've been doing this work for a while. I don't know how far you want me to go back. I feel like I've been a college student for the majority of my life, and that's probably accurate. But I can go back to the beginning if that's where you want.
That's fine. Please do. Please do.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Wendy, I was a non-traditional student. By the time I was 21, I had 3 children under the age of 4.
Yikes.
I was a single mom. I was on every government assistance program that there was available to me at that time. And I wasn't feeling really good about myself or about my future, but more importantly, about my children's future. So when I was about 24, I believe, I don't remember the exact age that I decided to go back to school, or to go to school. But about 24, I enrolled in a local community college. I'm from Massachusetts, and enrolled in a community college there, and immediately found my tribe. I was just taken in by the professors there, the instructors. Being a non-traditional student, I imagine I stood out. There were times when I had to bring my children to school with me. So they kind of took me under their wing and showed me some guidance and a whole lot of love and support, and ignited a fire in me, a fire for education. So completed the 2-year, went on and completed my bachelor's degree in English at Clark University in Massachusetts. And from there, I went on to Troy University. I ended up moving down to Albany during that time. This is a long stretch of time. Mm-hmm. But I moved down to Albany and decided I really want to do more. I want to advance my education. So I enrolled at Troy University, and my passion has always been English. I wanted to be an English professor. I'm a writer. I mean, I love words, right? When I went to Troy, my advisor, I made a decision based on her advice, let's say, or based on her lack of advice, let's say. Mm-hmm. I asked her what public administration was all about. It sounded intriguing. What's a master's in public administration? And she promptly told me that it was really hard. It was really hard, and maybe I should stick to English because I had done so well as an undergrad. And that was all she needed to say for me to say, oh, no. I'm going to do the master's in public administration. So I went for it, graduated top of my class, and from there decided that I wanted to go even farther. And I pursued my PhD at Walden University in public administration with a minor in management and leadership, and absolutely loved every minute of it right up until the end when it was time to, put the finishing touches on the dissertation. That was pretty harrowing experience, as I'm sure you can recall, but made it through. And I'm a living testimony that anyone can do this. If you have the will and the fortitude to get back in school and really put your all into it, you can accomplish great things regardless of your circumstances.
Yeah.
So
Well, before we actually delve into what your current role entails and the responsibilities, let me work backward. And so we'll start with the advice, the ill advice that was given to you in your master's program. And it's interesting because I immediately then went to your current role and where there's still a need. And I don't know because I wasn't there. You probably could venture a guess as to why that decision was made about why you couldn't handle such a rigorous master's program and why you should stay in this particular lane. And so I continued to be disheartened to the point of angry when people are making decisions about other people based upon limited information and oftentimes what is visible to them, whether it be their race or their gender. That's me making an assumption on that moment. Don't know. Can venture a guess though. It reminded me of an experience I had in a master's program that I was in. And it was at Central Michigan University. And I had an instructor at the time, and I've forgotten the class, but he was very always forthcoming with this one student. And she really was, an exceptionally bright woman. And he would always publicly, declare, oh, you need to go after, your terminal degree. And, you're just so good and you're so skilled and your critical thinking and your analyzation and all of those things that you need to pursue when you're doing a doctorate or that are critical to your success in that pursuit. And he would always point her out. And he pointed the same thing out about me, but he wrote it in a note and he handed it to me when the lights were off. We were doing a presentation, so that's why the lights were off. And he slid it to me. And I guess I was supposed to, feel complimented by it. That still bothers me to this day. I kept it for a long time and I wind up throwing it away. In my doctorate program, I oftentimes longed for it because when I needed that little boost of inspiration or motivation to keep going. But again, I never forgot that. I always wondered, and I had a guess, why you didn't make that public declaration about me, why mine had to then be transferred to a yellow piece of paper and slid in the darkness. I share that story. I don't know that I've ever shared that with too many people. I remember calling my aunt that night, just deeply disturbed about that. And that's been years ago. But I'm glad that you had the perseverance and used that as a catalyst, if you will, to keep moving forward and to be inspired and motivated, because so many people have fallen victim to those comments and statements like that. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I deeply appreciate you sharing, I too have an affinity for community colleges because it's twofold. It's an access format, and it really embraces those individuals who, are just kind of trying to find their way. Oftentimes, those non-traditionals, those parents, working adults, how can I do that? And those institutions oftentimes wrap their arms around them, envelop those individuals, and say, "Hey, we can get you through this process." And then immediately, if you desire, get into the workforce. So I'm glad. And then I find them to be the best students. I got my career launchpad was at Darton College at the time, and the non-traditional, the adult students were the absolute best students because they were so no nonsense, no knock on anybody else, but they got it. They came in there, they were on a mission, whatever support services, in addition to the academic component that you have, help me get through this process. And I absolutely loved that. So I'm glad that you were able to take advantage of that. Let's fast forward. You found yourself in Albany. When you got here, did you immediately enter the doors of Phoebe, or were you in another position?
I was actually in another position. Prior to moving to Georgia, I had been an administrator in the Job Corps program, one of them up in Massachusetts. So I transferred down to the Turner Job Corps to be the director of education and training. I was at Turner for about 7 years, and during that time, I went from my initial position to the deputy center director, and then finally to the center director position. I left Turner in 2009, and that's when I decided to pursue my master's.
Very good. Very good. And so now you are at Phoebe. Tell us a little bit about your career trajectory there, and then how you found yourself in this really key and regret. I don't want to use the word regrettably, but interesting. There's still a significant need for individuals to focus on diversity. And I'm speaking of myself. The president made a decision about a year ago that we need to focus on this and help our students to become prepared and skilled when they enter the workforce and be able to respond successfully. So tell us a little about your current role, what led up to that.
I feel like I've been preparing my entire life for this current role that I'm in both my personal and professional life. I've always worked with marginalized people and always had a passion for pulling those people, making space at the table for those people that normally don't get a chance to even be in the room, never mind sitting at the table. And that comes from an early age. I think it all stemmed from me always feeling like I didn't really fit in anywhere. I'm biracial, and growing up, I didn't fit in with the white kids and I didn't fit in with the Black kids. So I was kind of, a target of both sides. Mm-hmm. But in hindsight, I know that was a commonality that they had. So I really brought them together. That's how I choose to look at it. Brought them together against me, but that's okay. But so I've been preparing for this all my life. And when the opportunity came at Phoebe, I've only been here since May. It has not even been a year yet. It's been a whirlwind of a year. It really has. Never worked in healthcare before. I applied for Phoebe in January of 2020, and I applied for an organizational development coach position because that's another one of my passions is culture changes and leadership development. And I didn't get the job. So I took another job in Atlanta, and I worked there for about 4 months. Working between Atlanta and Albany was a challenge, but I really enjoyed what I was doing. I worked for the city of Atlanta. And then in April of 2020, I got a call and said, hey, I think we do want you for this position. We haven't filled it yet, and your name keeps coming up, and would you consider? So I said, absolutely. Who wants to continue the commute from Albany to Atlanta? But not only that, Phoebe's a great place to work, and I was happy.
Sure. I understand.
So I got here in May of last year and immediately jumped into the fire, so to speak. I mean, we were, in the midst of dealing with COVID. I had never worked in healthcare before, and this was all really new to me. But I saw so many opportunities because by that point, by the time I got here, people were just fatigued. They were exhausted from working, from fighting COVID. So I saw opportunities to work with small groups of people just to set up listening sessions and focus groups and to see how people were feeling and what we could make them do to feel better supported and more included in decision making and included in just having a voice at the table. And those turned out to be the catalyst for our senior leadership team to say, hey, we see something here. We see that there's a problem with diversity. We see that minorities in leadership positions don't really feel like we're inclusive at all levels of the organization. Through my listening sessions, I found that Phoebe is extremely diverse. You can walk through a hallway and see different races, ethnicities. You'll even hear different languages, different accents, genders, sexual orientation. We're very diverse. But we weren't diverse at all levels of the organization. And the senior leadership here recognized that and saw it for the problem that it was and decided we needed to do something about that. So in addition to my organizational development duties, they asked that I take on the lead of moving us through this diversity and inclusion journey. And it is a journey. I started with the focus groups, and then we moved on to establishing a diversity council here at Phoebe. And the council is made up of about 40 individuals from across the system. We have different positions from frontline staff all the way up to senior leadership. We're doing a lot of training with staff and with leadership, doing a lot, continuing to do listening sessions, sponsoring events within Phoebe and external facing events as well. Just trying to really get people to understand the business case behind diversity and inclusion and why it is so important here at Phoebe. Sure. So that's where we are now. A lot of things planned for the future, but right now that's where we are.
It's a lot. And thank you for your work and your efforts. And so my role, I have as we all do, and when you're at the administrative level, you have your, the expectation is that you're expert in a lot of different fields. Some require some on-the-job training, but you meet the needs of the moment. And we got a little slight pushback. A lot of people didn't understand there. Well, you're an HBCU. Why do you need Centers for Diversity, Inclusion, and Social Equity? And the president, in her infinite wisdom, in response to what was going on at the pandemic and the social ills associated with that, with the pandemic as it relates to COVID, and then we have this social unrest pandemic, if you will, and responding to that. And so I am now, and you will appreciate this as a writer, having a little writer's block as we move forward and plan. Because Jennifer, I am just at a moment now where, and back to that, we were talking about needing to take a vacation. I need to think this through because there's so many pervasive needs that we have to respond to as it relates to the diversity and inclusion. And the goal is when a student embarks their academic career at Albany State is they're coming to walk away with a degree, but their needs are so much broader. How do we get them to successfully navigate once whatever profession they enter, understanding that there's systemic racism, they're going to respond to you, whatever the they is, that experience will then likely entail a response to your complexion, your gender, your sexual orientation. The list goes on and on and on. And so we're trying to prepare them for that. And then I'm sure you find in your role, people bring their experiences to the job. And oftentimes we live in silos. And if we've not been in an environment where we have to then engage with diversity, then it's teaching others about how, yes, we're all human, but because of what society has taught you, or your limited engagement or experiences with others who may not look like you, that you don't then adopt those negative behaviors. And I can go on, but it really is hats off. And I'm learning this more and more now that I continue to do research. This is not for the faint of heart. The need is there. And you have to just kind of take it day to day because I find myself amazed at some of the things that people do say, respond. And I'm not, picking on Albany State. I'm just talking across society. I'm like, are we still having this conversation? Are we still behaving in this manner?
Yes.
It's astounding, but the work must continue.
The work must continue, and you hit the nail on the head. There are times when I feel like, why aren't we there yet? I've been doing this for almost a year already. Why aren't we there yet? But it is a journey, and I've gotten to the place where I've asked my team, my diversity council, hey, I need you to reel me in when I need to be reeled in, because I'll just go full steam ahead, and that's not the way to make and sustain this level of change that we need. It's a day by day, it's an interaction by interaction, process.
Yeah.
So I've kind of had a mind shift and said to myself, each day when I go home, I'll say, did I do everything I could do today to move us a step closer to where we want to be? And if I haven't, then I haven't. But tomorrow I'll do better. I'll show up every day and I'll continue to take those steps forward. But it can be exhausting. It's a heavy lift. There's a lot to be done, and everything can't be done at once.
Yeah. Well, thank you for reminding me of that. I really was on pause this week because I said, why am I so anxious, and why can't I, focus my mind on what the next semester, the next academic year needs to look like? And because again, there's so much that needs to be done. And I really just had to pause a moment and said to myself, allow yourself to be human. Because first of all, a lot has happened in just this week as it relates to race relations and all of that is associated with that. So allow yourself to be human and respond accordingly to that, and then, pick it back up. Speaking of being human, again, we have very demanding positions, and honored at the same time that, both of our the people that we report to, CEO Steiner and then President Federick said, hey, you're the perfect person to handle this load or this initiative. But at the same time, you're Jennifer Williams, you're human, you're, a woman, and you're a Black woman in the society, and you have children. And how do you breathe? Because that's important to do that, and then do the work that you do.
Yeah, it definitely feels like I'm walking on a tightrope or a balance beam, trying to manage my own personal feelings about things that are happening this week, and it seems like every week.
Yeah.
And also understanding that there are other perspectives. And as the DEI professional at Phoebe, I need to be mindful that building bridges requires one to do a lot more listening than speaking. So I need to listen to these diverse perspectives. And there are times on the inside when I'm screaming and I want to say, but I have a Black son and this could be him. This could happen to him. But I can't. I have to kind of keep that in, listen to the other perspective, and then respectfully state my opinion. So it's definitely a balancing act. I think it's all about how you engage in those types of conversations. You can't beat people over the head with your own personal experiences and beliefs, because they have theirs, and theirs are equally as important to them. So finding that common ground where we can all agree that we love our children and we wouldn't want our children to be murdered. And, we all want to live in safe environments. And there's a plethora of differences that we have, but there's also common ground that we can find.
Sure.
And I think the common ground is where we're able to build those bridges with one another.
Good deal. Good deal. Jennifer, let's take a break because there's a few more questions that I want to ask you before we officially wrap up. So we'll take a break and come back. And then I give you a couple homework assignments that I want us to cover those momentarily. Okay. Viewers, be sure to come back. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Realizing Potential.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing that and certainly being so transparent because it's wow. I used to naively have a background in human resources, and I would say I need people to leave their stuff in their car, their personal baggage and all of that, and then come in here and get this job done. You can pick it up as soon as you enter your vehicle. And that is so unfair to ask of anyone. We're humans and we're not robots. We can't just cut it off. But it is, as it relates to this whole diverse work and diversity and inclusion. It is an awful lot. And I know both as African American women, this is a skin we've been born in, and so we know the ills that we face. It seems like it's more heightened. I don't know if it's because of we've got these cell phones and everything is captured or can be captured in a nanosecond, and then documented forever, or because we have 24-hour access to information. I'm not sure. And it may be all of those things and more. But I'm glad to hear that it is important when you're in this profession that you do recognize and acknowledge who you are in the moment, but still recognize your role professionally and how you have to, as best you can, to separate that and to not let the societal ills and how they affect you, bleed, if you will, or impact your ability to successfully perform in your job. And that takes a lot of practice and a lot of work.
It absolutely does. And it's ironic because I'm encouraging people to be their authentic selves at work, to bring their whole selves to work, right? But I can't do that. I have to remain neutral because I want people to feel comfortable. When they're not able to say the things out loud, I want them to at least be able to whisper the things to me so that I can champion their cause, or I can bring their issues to light, and we can have conversations about them. So I need to remain that neutral person that people are comfortable confiding in.
Yeah. That's so important. That's so important. Well, I'm gonna have to come and job shadow you some days. I'm still a work in progress, if you will.
But wear your roller skates when you come. I'm fast moving.
Are you okay? Okay. Well, I'll definitely wear my flats if nothing else. Look, I need to do it for a whole week. Maybe that'll help with this pandemic fate that I cannot seem to shake. But I again, a work in progress in that area too. But let's let's kind of shift the subject a little bit, make it a little lighthearted, if you will. You share the whole love for writing and English, and I'm assuming that also means you have a love for reading as well. Yeah. Tell the viewers, I'm curious to know what books, fascinate you. Has there been one book that has impacted your life outside of your preferred religious text that you find yourself going back to often, or that one author? I have a couple authors that I'm just, whatever they produce, I am just, although let me take that back. I'm a big Sister Soldier fan. She did The Coldest. I don't know if you read the Coldest Winter. And I'm struggling with the sequel to that book now, but I'm gonna soldier on and try to finish it. But tell the viewers a book, what you're reading, your library looks like.
Well, the book that probably is my go-to and has had the biggest impact on my life would be I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Mother Maya Angelou.
Yes.
Yes, bow down. I first read it in maybe the 6th grade, and I've read it several times since, and then had to read it in college and was like thrilled when I saw it on the syllabus. I think for me, when I read that book, I read it at a time in my life when I was feeling acutely othered. I felt like I didn't fit in. I felt like I was carrying a lot of trauma at that time, and reading it, I just connected with Maya Angelou and felt like she's telling my story. She knows what I've been through. It was like a kindred spirit. And then to hear her speak and her poetry, I mean, she's just my all-time favorite. So
I know
that would be the book. My library is pretty expansive and eclectic. Everything from Yeats to Zora Neale Hurston, Ibram.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know. I wish I was.
love it.
Look, it's just, I'm all over the place with reading. Right now, though, I just started reading a book by Brooke Baldwin called Huddle. That's really interesting. It's about the collective power of women. When women huddle, great things happen. And it's just a series of examples of how that's happened throughout history and how it's really becoming evident now that collectively women have the power to change the world. So
Yeah,
I'm enjoying that.
good. I'll have to pick that up. That what you just shared reminded me. I just finished Lovia Jai's book, Professional Troublemaker, and she's very comical and just a very wise young woman. So you'll have to pick that up. I picked it up at Target, but it's really great. And she also has a portion in there where she talks about the power of women and how just, you need to be intentional in terms of that circle that you your tribe, if you will, or your board. I call them my board of directors, and them but making sure you have women who champion for you, who call your name when you're not even in the room.
Yes.
So yeah,
and who challenge you, women who challenge you.
There you go.
Women who are not just going to say, oh yes, girl, that's great. No, they're going to say, no, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Think about it this way.
There you go. Yeah. Now back to, as you said, Queen Mother Maya. You reminded me, I had it's like it happened yesterday. And I probably was in the 8th or the 9th grade, and I had an opportunity to hear her speak. And not only the energy in the room, but she had such a regal aura about her, then also very down to earth, but just the level of, I hope to aspire to achieve that one day, just the command that she had when she walked into the room. And then we're on a whole nother plane when she opened her mouth and spoke. So yeah, but that is a great book and transforming and resonating for so many people, whatever walk of life you happen to be from. So great choice. So your other homework assignment, I asked you if you had the opportunity to invite 3 people to dinner on an international scale that our viewers may be familiar with or may not. Who would those individuals be? What questions would you ask? And most importantly, I think you could tell, back to the COVID weight again, what would you serve for dinner?
Well, I'm going to surprise you with what I would serve. But,
okay.
I would invite Maya Angelou. You didn't say,
Yeah.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh, great.
And Stevie Wonder.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, 3 of my all-time favorites. They were social justice warriors, all in their own right. And just love them. I'm big fans of all of them.
Wow. So first of all, all of those are absolutely great choices, I have to say. I immediately invited myself. I could help serve for dinner because
you are always welcome at my table.
Well, thank you. And then I'm thinking like, oh, Stevie Wonder. Then I immediately went to, because he's genius, unparalleled. But then I thought about, oh my gosh, how prophetic was he? Because it's still relevant and true today, even more so. I immediately went to Songs in the Key of Life.
All time.
I know. Because all those songs are still impacting today and such social commentary. And so, yeah, I would, you'd probably send me out of the room because my crush would, be so very obvious. That's great. And then Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Oh my gosh, what a brilliant mind. And she was such an example in tenacity, all of the health challenges that she had, and she's still showing up to work, and just a champion for across the board, rights for women, human rights, all of those things, and just justice.
Right.
Petitely packaged. Yeah, so that was good. And then, of course, my so what you serving though? I mean, can't we just get full of the conversation? But you invited you invited us to dinner. Notice I added myself to that. So what are we eating? What are you serving?
Well, let me tell you something that came out in one of the very first listening sessions I did at Phoebe. We were talking about diversity and inclusion and what's the difference between the two. And one of the participants came up with something that stuck with me. So when you asked me that question, I said, that's my answer. But she said, diversity is being invited to the dinner party. Inclusion is having a say about the menu. So I would not dare create a menu without first consulting with my guests to see what they'd like on the menu.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, that's brilliant. I've heard a twist on that statement before, but it is absolutely so true. And that is a continued lesson that we as educators in this space, diversity, inclusion, social equity space, have to constantly keep beating that drum. That, at a minimum, it's making sure that we have full representation in the room at the table, and not have to do as Shirley Chisholm said, bring our own folding chair. Okay, so then we're there, but then to have a voice, to then have some input. I used to take great pride in saying, oh, she's the first, he's the first. Now I'm exhausted. Well, I was naive and young, blaming on immaturity, just and excited. But now I am exhausted. It is absolutely ridiculous that Melody Hobson is, the chair of Starbucks, and, in the sense that she's in the minority. There's no one else in that space in terms of an African-American woman or woman of color. And then we're, still celebrating, Rosalind Brewer's recent accomplishment with Walgreens. And I am reminded of a former employer that felt very emboldened and comfortable saying, well, I don't know where we can find the caliber of individuals that we need that are of color to fit into these roles. And in my head, I'm like, nah, I might lose my job today, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I got a mortgage to pay, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it because my response was, where are you looking? Because that's all that I know. Yeah, I can rattle off 5 to 7 just like that, Dr. Jennifer Williams, that can fit this billet and meet your criteria and are absolutely exceptional, because we always have to bring exception to the table. So it's going to be more than what you need. What do you mean you don't know where to go and find them?
It's because people that have that mindset have been fishing in the same small pond for so long that they keep getting the same fish. It's time to widen the net, and you have to be intentional about widening the net. We're lucky at Phoebe. We have you right down the street.
Yeah.
So that's a pipeline right there for Phoebe.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, I didn't say fishing in the same pond when you responded. I said, you can't keep going to the country club that I was not invited to in the first place to go in and to look for me or someone like me. So
great analogy.
Yeah. So needless to say, even in 2021, there's still much work to be. I am very hopeful. I'm still very excited. I also have to say in the same breath, it is still very exhausting. But the work has to continue. It absolutely has to continue. And so as we do it and then also embrace the importance of, somebody told me there's no such thing as work-life balance. And I understood where they were going, but their point was you just have to make those things, meaning the rest part, the self-care part. You just have to be intentional because it's not just going to magically happen. And so you've reminded me of that as well. I'm excited about your new role. I probably had already been bugging you a lot, and as we move forward and try to, because you helped with. We had Dr. Hurd and Dr. Black to come on and talk about the low vaccination rate and encouraging individuals, particularly in the communities of color, to do that. So you were instrumental in that, and then you and I are planning a leadership conference later on this summer. I'm excited about that, but I mean it. I'm going to have to come and job shadow you and get some ideas, and looking forward to continue partnerships. And if that, in addition to, I would love for you to come and speak to those adult learners.
I would love to.
Yeah,
Wendy, that would be an honor.
Yeah, we got to get you a part of our recruitment initiative because we know that there's a multitude of talent. And I tell people all the time, please leave that apprehension about you pursuing a college degree at the door, particularly if you're basing it on, do I have the ability to do this? You certainly do. The resources are there. And please don't fall victim to the instructor that you had who said, that's a rigorous program, you can't do that, or the instructor that slipped me a note. Certainly here at Albany State University, in each sector of this institution, we have people that are fighting for you and willing to help you and hold your hand through the process. And so you example that. I know your children and your family and the community is certainly proud of you. And I'm going to say, is Scott Steiner originally from Detroit, or he worked in Detroit for a period of time?
He worked in Detroit. I'm not sure exactly where he's from, but he worked.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I'm from Detroit. So I was going to give him credit on that and just say he made an outstanding, must be a Detroit thing. He made an outstanding selection. I'm so elated that they called you and said, we need your expertise here at Phoebe because the community is benefiting from it.
Well, I hope so. And I'm thrilled to be here. I love what I'm doing, and I'll keep showing up.
Good. Thank you so much. I have enjoyed this conversation tremendously. Know that you are welcome back anytime. We'd love to hear about the great accomplishments that I know are certainly already happening and that will continue to come at Phoebe, and certainly looking forward to the continued partnership that we have with here at Albany State.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome. Thank you. And viewers, thank you always for joining me for Realizing Potential. I look forward to seeing you next time, and please continue to be safe.